What do we want this morning? Do we want something? Come on, speak. Come on.
Doctor, I'd like to kiss you goodbye.
All right, but you're so damned ugly.
There's no fresh water, no vegetation, nothing.
Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Planet of the Apes, 1968, marked the dawn of cinematic science fiction. But that was only the surface. In 1968, when Charlton Heston stepped onto the screen and delivered a groundbreaking performance, audiences had no idea that behind the spectacular and emotionally charged scenes, the film concealed secrets that were shocking, intense, and almost unimaginable. From violent sequences cut for their sheer brutality to actors nearly fainting or confronting unforeseen dangers, the behind-the-scenes world of Planet of the Apes was truly a labyrinth of pain, pressure, and silent sacrifice. In today's video, we're going to explore the 20 strangest facts about Planet of the Apes, details that most viewers never knew. Get ready to uncover dark secrets, including how the actors portraying apes endured subtle yet heavy discrimination. Number 20. Torture Camp. 9 hours to transform into an ape. The 1968 Planet of the Apes set often felt like a torture camp. To bring the ape civilization to life, the production employed 80 makeup artists and prepared hundreds of costumes to transform 200 actors into gorillas, chimpanzees, and orangutans. Every morning, the principal cast members sat motionless in their chairs, faces drained from sleepless nights, while nearly 100 makeup artists surrounded them like surgical teams preparing for a delicate operation. Initially, turning a human into a complete ape required 5 to 7 hours of continuous work for each rubber mask, with every hair glued meticulously and every wrinkle carved into the face. And the nightmare didn't end after filming. Removing the heavy masks took another 3 hours, leaving skin raw and blistered. Makeup director John Chambers aimed to make the apes look as realistic as possible. He drew inspiration from techniques he learned during World War II while performing reconstructive surgery on injured soldiers. Chambers spent countless hours studying apes, sketching facial expressions, and training over 80 makeup artists to achieve a perfect look for the cast. With an optimized assembly line process, he cut the makeup time from 6 hours to about 3 to 4 hours, a true cinematic feat. The film's makeup budget skyrocketed to $1 million, using soft latex and non-toxic adhesives to achieve the desired appearance. This extraordinary work earned Chambers an honorary Oscar, long before makeup had its own competitive category in Hollywood. Number 19. Painful makeup nearly caused actors to suffocate. At times, she nearly fainted on set from oxygen deprivation, a terrifying and suffocating experience she described as worse than any scene she ever filmed. Roddy McDowall, portraying Cornelius, fared no better. After 5 hours in the makeup chair, he felt his head about to explode. He admitted to taking sedatives multiple times to stay conscious, trapped inside a tight mask that prevented even the slightest movement. Acting in this makeup was not just physical labor, it was mental torture. The contrast between the on-screen glory and the backstage reality was staggering. On screen, the apes could growl, bare teeth, and display expressive faces. In reality, the actors' eyes were the only part that conveyed life. Underneath the heavy foam, every scene became a survival challenge. Number 18. The controversial nude scene. Did you know that Charlton Heston's nude scene when captured by the apes caused a massive stir in 1968? Upon release, the scene sparked heated controversy. Although Planet of the Apes was rated G, suitable for all audiences, viewers were confronted with Heston completely nude. Censors were horrified. A blockbuster sci-fi movie expected to attract families and children dared to expose the star naked. In conservative American society, the scene was deemed offensive and potentially damaging to the film's reputation. Yet, director Franklin J. Schaffner and his team insisted on keeping it. They argued that the nudity wasn't meant to shock sexually, but served as a psychological device. When Taylor is stripped bare, the audience witnesses a completely helpless human, utterly humiliated. The offensiveness transforms into an artistic tool, turning physical degradation into emotional torment. This raw exposure allows viewers to feel Taylor's despair. He loses not only his freedom, but also his dignity. Number 17. Some scenes were cut for being too violent. From the very first edits of Planet of the Apes, there were dark elements hidden from the public eye. In the original cuts, audiences witnessed horrifying scenes. Guerrilla soldiers coldly declaring, "The only good human is a dead human," and then executing prisoners in broad daylight. These moments turned the ape world into a nightmare of violence, so raw and graphic that Fox had to remove them for being too brutal. The fear of censorship didn't end with the first film. In Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, there were scenes of apes being beaten and shot while trying to escape. The climax depicted Caesar, the ape leader, leading a revolt and dragging Governor Breck to execution amidst a tide of hatred. The original cut showed a bloody massacre with apes smashing human resistance. But fearing a ban, Fox trimmed the scene, replacing it with a tamer ending. Number 16. Ape actors naturally segregated themselves. A bitter truth occurred on the 1968 Planet of the Apes set during lunch breaks. When the call for "break" rang out, the cast entered the dining area. But instead of gathering together like a normal film crew, they automatically separated into tables according to the species they portrayed. Chimpanzees sat together. Gorillas clustered to one side. Orangutans picked a separate table, and the actors playing humans kept their distance. This division happened naturally, almost instinctively. Charlton Heston, starring as astronaut Taylor, watched the scene with genuine bewilderment. He couldn't understand why colleagues, friends in real life, suddenly maintained such cold distance once in ape makeup. The atmosphere was tense, like a drawn bowstring. Yet it gave Heston a profound sense of isolation, mirroring his character's alienation on the ape planet. Actors Natalie Trundy and Kim Hunter later admitted that even though they were familiar with one another, they unconsciously avoided sitting with actors portraying different species. This occurred in the late 1960s, just a few years after the U.S. Civil Rights Act prohibited racial discrimination. Yet, on the Planet of the Apes set, segregation re-emerged in a different form. Not by skin color or ethnicity, but by ape makeup. This unconscious behavior sparked reflection. Do humans, when disguised by a different appearance, instinctively gravitate toward their own kind and erect barriers? Let's discuss this below before moving on to an even more fascinating fact. Number 15. Filming was spectacularly done in Utah. The Utah desert, barren and scorched under the sun, became the irreplaceable backdrop for Planet of the Apes. Instead of relying on studio sets, director Franklin J. Schaffner took the crew to Lake Powell, Glen Canyon, and Horseshoe Bend. There, silver-gray rocks, cracked earth, and blazing skies created a surreal landscape, as if a forgotten planet existed beyond the universe. Cinematographer Leo Shamroy marveled, "God is the greatest set designer of all." However, capturing this majestic scenery came at extreme cost. There were no straight roads for trucks, no shade for brakes. Every piece of filming equipment and prop had to be carried by hand over miles in scorching heat. Many crew members collapsed from exhaustion. One wrong step could have meant disaster in this harsh environment. On screen, the results were breathtaking and eerie. The opening scene with the spaceship crashing into the lake, smoke rising under towering cliffs, made viewers believe the characters had landed on an alien planet. Glen Canyon, through the camera lens, became a symbol of a post-apocalyptic Earth, cold, barren, lifeless. To film every moment, the crew used extreme measures. Cameras were mounted on giant cranes, sometimes even helicopters, to capture sweeping aerial shots. The makeup team worked in refrigerated trailers in the desert, since latex masks would melt under the sun within minutes. Everyone knew that a single mistake could ruin a day's hard work. What audiences saw on screen was grandeur, but behind it lay days of tension and exhaustion. The Utah desert was merciless, claiming energy, sweat, and even the safety of the crew. Each frame carries not just a fictional world, but the imprint of harsh nature etched into the film itself. Number 14. Fake Statue of Liberty. The final moment of Planet of the Apes shocked the entire film world, with the Statue of Liberty towering amidst the desolate sands. But the truth is, the Statue of Liberty shown was merely a handcrafted model, hastily constructed from wood, plaster, and styrofoam. The 1968 Planet of the Apes crew simply didn't have the budget to build a full-scale monument. The scene was shot on Malibu Beach, where the model included only the head and crown of the statue. The camera was positioned on a tall scaffold and moved down a sand slope, creating the illusion of the massive statue buried in the wasteland of time. The rest, the broken body, scattered debris, did not exist in reality. It was all matte painting seamlessly integrated into the shot. This tricked viewers' eyes, transforming a normal beach into an apocalyptic image forever etched in cinematic history. Number 13. Taylor dies in the original script. Nova is pregnant. In Rod Serling's early drafts, the character Taylor was named Thomas, a lone astronaut exploring what seemed to be a distant planet. In that script, Thomas witnesses the Statue of Liberty collapse and falls, tragically dead, emphasizing humanity's ultimate downfall. But immediately after this horrific moment, a glimmer of hope appears. Nova, pregnant with Thomas's child, escapes into the Forbidden Zone, carrying the future of humankind in her womb. It was an ending that promised a new generation, both tragic and shimmering with hope. However, Michael Wilson, the screenwriter who took over from Serling, vehemently opposed this script. He argued that Taylor surviving through his lineage would diminish the story's tragic weight. Scenes of Nova experiencing morning sickness and clutching her pregnant belly were filmed. But after review, Wilson and the crew realized emphasizing pregnancy would shift the story in an entirely different direction, away from the darkness and despair the film aimed to convey. Beyond artistic reasons, there were concerns about audience reactions. The idea of Taylor mating with a non-human creature could provoke strong public backlash, creating unnecessary ethical controversy. In reality, the problem wasn't about sex or politics. It was that pregnancy abruptly redirected the story, overshadowing the final statue scene, the ultimate symbol of the film. Number 12. The Dark Secret of screenwriter Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson was the creative soul behind the 1968 Planet of the Apes screenplay. But his life was far more complicated than his career. Wilson was caught in Hollywood's dark history during the political witch hunts, where countless artists were blacklisted. For refusing to testify before the HUAC, he was blacklisted, becoming a nameless figure in the very film industry he helped build. Wilson's pinnacle of glory turned into an abyss. Though he had won an Oscar for A Place in the Sun, 1951, he quietly fled to France for a decade. He wrote relentlessly, yet his name vanished from screens. Masterpieces like The Bridge on the River Kwai and Lawrence of Arabia brought glory to others, while Wilson, the true writer, remained politically erased. More cruelly, The Bridge on the River Kwai even awarded the Oscar to Pierre Boulez, a novelist who didn't speak English, simply because Wilson's name was banned. In the shadows, he continued leaving his mark through uncredited screenplays. Salt of the Earth, 1954, an anti-war film he wrote, was banned in the US for over a decade. His entire life resembled a ghost of Hollywood. crafting stories that shook the world, yet never receiving recognition or applause. It was tragic, yet a testament to his pride. He never compromised. It wasn't until the 1960s, after the political frenzy subsided, that Wilson returned to the spotlight. He worked on The Sandpiper and later Planet of the Apes. But even then, the blacklist's shadow remained. In many early promotional materials, Wilson's name didn't appear, as if he still had to live in Hollywood's reserve registry, allowed to write, but never fully free. Bitterness persisted. Justice only came posthumously. In 1984, the Academy officially recognized Wilson and co-writer Carl Foreman for The Bridge on the River Kwai, long after both had passed. It was a belated apology and honor, delayed to heartbreaking extremes. Yet his name was finally restored to its rightful place. A great screenwriter who transformed suffering into cinematic legend. Number 11. Ape addicted to cigarettes and alcohol. The Planet of the Apes set was a stage of unbelievable paradoxes. Images of apes with heavy latex faces, trembling hands holding cigarettes in the desert sun, made anyone witnessing it for the first time laugh in astonishment. They couldn't remove their masks, so cigarettes were smoked through long straws, smoke curling through thick plastic, creating a scene both comical and eerie. The most notable among them was Roddy McDowall, who played Cornelius. He once drove on the highway still in full ape makeup, startling passing drivers who thought they'd seen a creature escape from a lab. During breaks, McDowall and his colleagues casually donned sunglasses, held newspapers, sipped coffee or mild alcohol, all under thick ape masks. Photographers captured these moments, and when released, the images became some of the most bizarre Hollywood photos of the 1960s. Number 10. Tight budget and studio pressure. Although Planet of the Apes became a massive success, it faced tremendous pressure during production. When Arthur P. Jacobs approached the cold doors of 20th Century Fox, he knew the path to a green light was full of obstacles. The crazy idea of a planet ruled by apes made studio executives turn away. "No one will believe Charlton Heston talking to a chimp," Richard Zanuck once shook his head. With no other options, Jacobs took a gamble, shooting a short test reel with Heston and the actors in ape makeup to prove that if audiences didn't laugh, the film could proceed. The screening of this short test was a tense battle. Jacobs recalled telling Zanuck, "If anyone laughs, scrap the project." The theater remained completely silent. No laughter, only fear and tension thick as a drum. And just like that, Fox gave the go-ahead. Make the film. A command that shattered the usual Hollywood gridlock. But the agreement was just the beginning. The real pressure started then. Fox kept salaries low and pinched every penny. Initially announcing a budget of around $5.8 million, they still pushed to cut costs wherever possible. Michael Wilson had to rewrite the script, lowering the sophistication of ape society to reduce costume, design, and set expenses, turning the ape planet into a world realistic enough to terrorize humanity, yet cheap enough for Fox to fund. From these doubts and pressures emerged a blockbuster. The film grossed over $33 million, many times its budget, while launching a sci-fi franchise that would resonate not just in Hollywood, but in audiences' imaginations worldwide. Number 9. Original novel, far from the film. In Pierre Boulle's original novel, La Planète des Singes, the story begins with philosophical and sci-fi overtones. Journalist Ulysse Meroux and his team land on the planet Sohor, near the star Betelgeuse. There, the apes have built a civilization on par with humans, driving cars, wearing suits, and conversing in modern European-style houses. Humans, on the other hand, are reduced to wild beasts, running naked through the forest. This strange and chilling world has no connection to Earth. By the time the story reached the screen in 1968, it had transformed completely. Instead of a distant planet, viewers saw astronaut George Taylor crash onto a seemingly alien world that turns out to be future Earth. And the iconic twist with the collapsed Statue of Liberty made the film legendary. This was entirely new, created by screenwriter Rod Serling, absent from Boole's novel. If Boole instilled philosophical dread in readers, Serling delivered a visual and emotional shock to audiences. Even the level of ape civilization differed dramatically. In the novel, apes are the new humans, a modern society with science, technology, vehicles, and media. In the film, they are reduced to a semi-primitive community, living with horses, clubs, and rudimentary villages. This not only saved production costs, but also gave the story a mythic, wild quality that resonated emotionally with audiences of the time. Next, let's move on to an even more chilling behind-the-scenes fact. Number 8. Rivalry between lead actors. The two lead characters had an undercurrent of animosity and rivalry. While Charlton Heston entered the role of George Taylor with all the glamour of an A-list star, Kim Hunter, trapped under heavy latex to become Dr. Zira, battled suffocating discomfort to the point of needing sedatives each morning. They stood at opposite extremes. One, a free man, displaying body and power. The other, a woman buried beneath an ape mask. This stark contrast created fiery on-screen tension. Rumors suggested that Heston wanted his scenes to dominate, while Hunter was determined to preserve Zira as a character with depth, not merely a shadow beside Taylor. Number 7. Ending inspired by a snack bar visit. From the start, producer Arthur P. Jacobs and director Blake Edwards, originally assigned to direct Planet of the Apes, struggled to find the film's ending. Boole's novel took place on a distant planet, but Jacobs rejected a predictable conclusion. He wanted a twist, a sudden blow that would leave audiences breathless. And then the impossible happened. In an ordinary snack bar. Amid the din of the eatery, Jacobs had a flash of inspiration. What if Taylor had never left Earth? What if, all this time, he had wandered amid the ruins of his own civilization? The idea struck like lightning, but it still lacked the element to become a punch to the gut for viewers. The defining moment came when Jacobs and Edwards stepped out of the snack bar. Beside the cash register hung a quiet image of the Statue of Liberty. The sight left them frozen in deadly silence. "This is our rosebud," Jacobs exclaimed, borrowing a metaphor from Citizen Kane to describe the moment they found the missing piece. A call was immediately placed to the genius screenwriter Rod Serling. Serling transformed that spark in the snack bar into the cinematic ending that would shock history. When you watch the film, what do you think of this ending? Share your thoughts below. Now, let's move on to the next strange fact. Number 6. The ape judge trial scene was improvised. In the scene where Taylor is put on trial in the ape court, director Franklin Schaffner thought it would be amusing to have the 3 orangutan judges mimic the phrase, "See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil," from an ancient Asian proverb during a rehearsal. Heston suggested Schaffner go ahead and film it just for fun, with no intention of including it in the final cut. Both Heston and Schaffner were shocked and disappointed when the gag actually made it through all the editing rounds and ended up in the final film. Number 5. Most studios and the book's author thought it would be terrible. Talking apes, especially ones that could speak, were the stuff of 1960s B-movies, and no one took them seriously. This was Arthur P. Jacobs' plight as he wandered from studio to studio, carrying the rights to La Planète des Singes like a treasure. Instead of enthusiasm, he was met with derisive laughter. The idea of talking, robe-wearing apes judging humans was considered ridiculous, no different from a cheap B-movie joke. Hollywood scoffed. Ironically, even Pierre Boulle, the author of the original novel, the very father of the story, didn't believe in his creation. In Behind the Planet of the Apes, He admitted that La Planète des Sages was one of his second-tier works, not a source of pride, and he never imagined it reaching the silver screen. It was a verdict like a cold blade. Even the origin of the work rejected its cinematic future.
Number 4. The conflict between Burt Lancaster and Charlton Heston. Burt Lancaster was once considered the trump card for the role of Taylor in Planet of the Apes. The producer hoped his star power would turn the unbelievable sci-fi project into a box office hit. But Lancaster flatly refused, calling the script too childish and the idea of apes ruling humans laughable, not worth risking his career. This decision slammed a door, one that would later open a historic opportunity for another actor, Charlton Heston. The bitter truth is Heston wasn't the first choice. Before reaching him, the studio had approached other A-list stars: John Wayne, Rock Hudson, Marlon Brando, Steve McQueen. All refused. Hollywood's living legends wouldn't gamble on a project that sounded like a joke. Finally, when all doors seemed closed, Heston stepped in, taking a role others had left behind. Ironically, this wasn't Heston's first time stepping into Lancaster's footsteps. He had previously replaced Lancaster in The Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur, The Agony and the Ecstasy, and Khartoum. Each time, Heston not only filled the role, but transformed it into an immortal icon. Between the two, a subtle conflict always lingered, preventing full harmony. Number 3. Humor was added during rewrites. Planet of the Apes stood out not only for its thrilling plot and iconic makeup, but also for its quirky sense of humor, which sometimes made audiences laugh out loud. With a title like Planet of the Apes, it's hard to imagine the filmmakers taking everything completely seriously. And in fact, these humorous moments appearing amid tense scenes created a fascinating contrast, making the film simultaneously eerie and strangely entertaining. Surprisingly, this humor was not in Rod Serling's original draft. According to producer Mort Abrahams, an uncredited screenwriter added the comedic lines during rewrites, enhancing the entertainment value of the characters without undermining the story's seriousness. While these moments may make the film feel dated compared to modern adaptations that focus heavily on plot, this unexpected wit became one of the elements that made Planet of the Apes unique and unforgettable. Number 2. Charlton Heston fought illness. Few know that in one of the boldest scenes of Planet of the Apes, Charlton Heston was not only nude on camera, but also battling a fierce flu. The icy water sprays, sea winds, and high fever left his body trembling. Yet he gritted his teeth, turning real pain into fuel for portraying George Taylor, a desperate man, humiliated and exposed before the apes. The production schedule and tight budget left no luxury for rest. Heston had to keep going despite sweat-drenched fever and labored breathing. Ironically, his hoarse voice from illness made Taylor feel more authentic than ever. The rasp was no longer acting, but the ragged breath of a man pushed to the edge. On screen, this created a scene both realistic and haunting. Next, let's move on to an even darker secret behind the film. Number 1. Pop culture impact. Planet of the Apes was more than a film. It became a cultural phenomenon, inspiring countless movies, comics, TV series, and toys. It didn't just tell a sci-fi story about apes ruling humans. It pioneered a modern Hollywood franchise model. The concept of multimedia that Marvel or Star Wars now fully exploit had its first foundations laid here. The image of talking apes spilled out from theaters into everyday life. Marvel quickly published comic books, Japan adapted it into manga, and the US market exploded with action figures, masks, and posters. Children grew up with plastic ape people, while collectors treated them as treasures. For the first time, Hollywood saw a sci-fi film become a global consumer craze. The influence extended beyond commerce. Planet of the Apes became a cultural torch, inspiring works from Alien Nation and Enemy Mine to V, Satirical shows like The Simpsons and Saturday Night Live frequently parodied the ape court, turning it into a symbol of social critique. Contemporary artists, from Martha Rosler to anti-war collectives, also used the image of the ruined Statue of Liberty to protest war and humanity's decay. Politically, the title was used as a sharp metaphor. Extremist groups invoked it to warn of racial upheaval, while resistance movements made it a symbol of liberation. Greenpeace even used the apes imagery in anti-nuclear campaigns, transforming a sci-fi movie into an environmental propaganda tool. So there you have it, 20 shocking and intense facts about Planet of the Apes, from controversial scenes to untold behind-the-scenes secrets. Could you ever imagine actors going insane under ape makeup? Or that Taylor was originally named Thomas and Nova was pregnant with humanity's future? These details don't just shock, they make the film feel alive and more terrifying than ever. Which fact impressed you the most? Do you think the harsh behind-the-scenes conditions and cut secrets helped create the Planet of the Apes legend? Share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more thrilling film facts, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next classic secrets. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.